Welcome to Lucid Cafe. I'm your host, Wendy Halley. In today's episode, my friend and colleague, Marie Frohlich, shares the quite powerful ayahuasca ceremony experiences she had last year in Peru. For those of you not familiar with ayahuasca, it's a sacred plant medicine from the South American Amazon. Indigenous tribes have been working with this plant medicine for thousands of years. It's actually a combination of two plants, chacruna, which is a leaf, and ayahuasca, which is a vine. The plants are boiled over a fire for many hours to prepare the ayahuasca tea, which is consumed in a ceremonial setting and produces a long-lasting hallucinogenic experience. One thing to keep in mind is that the ayahuasca brew contains the naturally occurring psychedelic dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, which is illegal in the United States. Interestingly, ayahuasca has been getting a lot more mainstream attention these days after the award-winning author Michael Pollan released his latest book, How to Change Your Mind: What the New Science of Psychedelics Teaches Us About Consciousness, Dying, Addiction, Depression, and Transcendence. I should be getting my copy of this book next week, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. But in today's episode, you're going to get a front row seat to the ayahuasca experience as Marie beautifully captures and highlights the profound effects of her South American healing journey. So please enjoy my conversation with Marie Frohlich. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Marie.
I'm so glad to be here, Wendy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
Before we dive into your experience, I was wondering if you wanted to share a little bit about who you are and your work.
Sure. Let's see. I tend to be very curious and have worn many hats in my life. Right now, I am happy to be a health coach, a holistic health coach, and an herbalist. And I've been doing that for about the last 10 years here in Montpelier and from home where I live in central Vermont, and really loving the alternative approach to supporting people's health goals through both of those means. And my byline is co-creating health from the heart. And I love that because it is a co-creative process. And for me, I love to attract people who are really on their own mission to improve their health. I am not a missionary myself, and so it's really about supporting their goals and doing all the work that requires to help them be accountable to those goals. And I've just really enjoyed the process of doing that.
So how does your work with someone look?
Well, it's a 3 or 6 month program. I meet with them twice a month by phone, Skype, or in person, depending on where they live. And we start with a free health history assessment to help pull out the really top 3 goals they have. And then we work out a plan to work on those goals, whatever they be. And I like to add things in to either their diet, if it's a weight issue or a need to shift their lifestyle, or other things and special herbs that help with energy. My focus is really struggling with people who are trying to balance their energy and their lifestyle to be more vital and energetic and supportive of their families and where they are in their lives.
You mean that kind of work-life balance?
A work-life balance. And we're all dealing with many stressors right now. I don't think I've ever seen this much in my lifetime versus my parents and my grandparents, even though they went through world wars and had pocketed, years of high stress. This is years and years of ongoing stress dealing with the 21st century modern, requirements to survive.
It does seem to be really having an impact, yeah.
So I really think that's huge. And so the herbs and the approach I use really help people come to a calmer place in their lives and are that they're able to shift and that shift can be sustainable. And that's my goal, that whatever we do sticks and they can continue with that and not just try this and go back to what they were doing.
I really like the combination of using herbs and coaching because to do one without the other, I was just thinking you could have limited success.
Absolutely, because we're used to being a pill popping society, and a lot of people are looking for that magic pill so they can get on with their work. And they have this or that, and they just want to fix it and get on. Where with health coaching, it's really looking at your day to day life and what you need. That is about the food you're bringing into your body, the people you're bringing into your life, how you're moving your body, your career goals. There's so many things that affect our vitality. And where are you getting drained? What do you need to come in and what do you need to go and let go of? So, those are the kinds of things we look at. I do some energy medicine. I've been trained to do practicing presence, where you can hold people in a space and allow them to go into their bodies to find out where the blockages are and then talk about that. And then I'll maybe bring in an herbal ally that they can say, wow, I can have this plant or this herb with me every day to keep that intention alive to support whatever, is blocking one from feeling great. So it's fun. Looking at people's childhood culture is one of the things I love to do because that maps so much of our lives and what they ate as a child, their parents' health, all of those things. So the health history is tells a lot.
Sounds like you got a lot of tools in your toolbox.
I do. Yes, I do. Thank you.
You said for 10 years you've been doing this. What
Y-
did you do prior to that?
Let's see. When you live in rural Vermont, you actually have to cobble together, a couple of different income streams.
So true.
If you're really trying to work as a self-employed individual. And in my case, before that, I was acting more like a single mom because my husband had to work down in DC and we had a commuting marriage for like 25 years. And during that time, I worked as a consultant, especially to Cabot Creamery in their marketing department for about 13 years and did a lot of national education programs for them. So I have a lot of experience through National 4-H Council and other jobs that brought that to them and was able to design and develop some programs to pitch the importance of calcium to children's bones and all of that their effort to bring healthy cheese to America.
So that health piece has always been a part of your work.
It absolutely has. And I think actually working for them and witnessing, since the 80s, not that I started with them in the 80s, it was early 90s, but witnessing traveling all over the US. I was working with a celebrity chef going into elementary schools and witnessing this decline in children's health over time. And the obesity crisis was happening. And it was so startling to me that when my children ended up graduating from high school and going off to college, I took that opportunity to go off to school myself and get certified as a health coach for that reason. And I thought if I was working with adults who are managing children's health and getting them on board, it would help shift their children's lives.
That sounds like a very small task. Oh my
Well, just a
God.
little drop of pebble in the pond.
Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you on the podcast was because you recently did an ayahuasca ceremony. And I am so intrigued and I wanted
Mhm.
to hear more about it. And I know a lot of people are very curious about it too out there in the world. So I was really pleased that you were willing to share your experience as much as you care to share.
Sure. No. Um, I could back up a little bit on that, parallel to my career path of becoming a health coach. I was raised a Catholic for many, many years, went to church every morning. So there's a spiritual side of me that's always been hunting for something more than whatever the Catholic Church could offer me as an adult. I felt like there was a lot of guilt ridden experiences as a child through the Catholic Church. You know, you couldn't really look below your neck and not feel guilty in my world as a child. And there was so many other pieces to that. So I've been sort of on a quest to understand why we're here and what our purpose in life truly can be and how to have a meaningful life. And I thought, through different studies about reincarnation, and some of us, do we really have hundreds of lives? And we're constantly getting lessons with each lifetime that we bring into the next. And so I thought, wow, what if I could condense all those lifetimes? How can I catapult myself spiritually so I don't have to go through a lot of lifetimes?
Oh, that was your initial
That was my
intention, huh?
initial, like, what can I do
How
to
can I get off this planet?
how can I compress my spiritual growth into one magnificent lifetime? Um, so that was sort of a curiosity, having done a little study about ayahuasca on what it might do, because people were saying, it's like 20 years of therapy in a few ceremonies. And I really admire and honor therapists in the world and that what that does for people and what it can do for people, but that was not me.
Yeah,
I
I've
had,
certainly heard that before
yeah, as a
as a
therapist.
therapist. Oh yeah. No, it is limited, I think.
Well, and for me, part of it just going over the past keeps it alive, and I was looking for ways to sort of burn it and have it just diffuse into the ether.
Well, I imagine that ties into your coaching approach too, because it's a very proactive approach to life and
Yeah.
problem solving. It's not about dwelling or revisiting, right? It's
Right. It's about finding ways to celebrate who you are, essentially, and loving yourself. Eh,
although I get there are psychotherapies out there that try to focus on that as well.
of course,
Yes.
of
Let's
course.
put that caveat in there. I don't want to piss any
Mm,
of my
not at
colleagues
all.
off out in the
No,
world.
sometimes that is the gateway. That therapy, really opens up people's minds to what could be and may take them down a path that I chose.
Very true. Yeah.
So it's very important that people are given the space and time to reflect on whatever,
Yeah,
that
therapy
can,
is definitely good for
yeah,
that.
super. And that's what coaching is too, in a way, um, for different reasons. But in any case, the ayahuasca opportunity, when you look at what you attract into your life and go, wow. So having this intention about ayahuasca and thinking about it, and then I was approached by Zoe Helene, who is the founder of Cosmic Sisters, Cosmic Sisterhood. She has a website and offers grants for people to do a trip to Peru to do ayahuasca.
Wow.
And I was working with Rosemary Gladstar for many years as a teacher host at the International Herbal Symposium. And Zoe was there with her husband, Chris Killam, who is widely known as a ayahuasca hunter, more or less. Um, he's amazing. And so she just said, I really, Marie, over the years that after I met her there, I was talking to her at different conferences and things, and she said, Marie, I really would like you to apply to come to this and get this grant and come to Peru. So that was like 2 years before I went. And then the year before we left, when all the paperwork is done and you kind of sign and promise you will do the ceremonies, you can't back out.
Really?
Truly, if they give you a grant for at least half of what your cost will be, and enough time certainly to save to for the rest. so there was a process, and that's why I chose to go, because it wasn't like, okay, bam, let's go and do ayahuasca. No, we had a year to think about what our intention would be through the ceremony and prepare our bodies for the experience. So 6 months before you go, you start journaling, and 3 months before you go, you start a very strict diet
And this is per this program.
for this specific program.
Okay. Because, yeah, not all
Not,
ayahuasca
no, no, no,
programs approach it that way.
not at all. There's a wide range of opportunities that offer
But,
different ways of approaching the experience and the master plant that it is.
and I really like this approach, which is a lot more deliberate, a lot more, you really have to sit with yourself and probably go through uh, a whirlwind of emotions as you're preparing.
It's true. It's true. Given the intention that you're going and knowing what it could be, I read several books that were recommended before going to understand what the physical experience would be, what I was committing to, what other people's experiences had been, and why, And so there's all that grounding information in your mind, and then you realize, what is it do you want from this experience? And jokingly, that catalyst or catapult to shrink my lifetimes was there, but in truth, it it was a curiosity, a true curiosity about how could this one formula of two plants that's known as ayahuasca actually shift my life. You know, how is that possible? And as an herbalist, I know the magic of herbs and how wonderful they are in with infusions, teas, tonics, tinctures, etc., for supporting health. And of course, I'm a child of the '60s, and I have to admit that in the '60s, I certainly did my share of psychedelics, and
You did it.
I did, and cannabis, but not to the nth degree. I was not, what they knew
More casual.
called as a dope head or any of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
Um, but that was my curiosity back then too. And when you're tripping in the '60s with blotter acid, no one's there to guide you, or there's no intention around it. It's just like kids in the playground
Well,
trying some new toy.
that's true now too.
Well,
And
I'm sorry I'm sorry for that, because knowing what it was then and knowing what I experience now, it there has to be an honoring of what this is to
yeah,
really feel the impact and transformation.
I'm hoping that this movement that seems to be rising
Hmm.
around using psychedelics, plant psychedelics in particular, and some synthetic ones like MDMA, and I'm hoping that the trend is going in the direction of guided experiences as opposed to recreational with real purpose, you know?
Well, I think that's the only way anyone's ever really going to get the benefit of what it is. Otherwise, it's crazy. It's an addiction. It's like opiates.
Well, it can be dangerous too
Well, yeah,
to your psyche.
yeah, not come back from a place in a way with some of those drugs. But uh,
I got you off track. I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. No, I'm glad you mentioned that. But that's the point, that the guided experience is the experience you want to have. And it doesn't mean you have to have this particular one, which we had with the Temple of the Way of Light in Peru, which was a fabulous retreat space and very well run, along with this vetted group of 23 people that Zoe put together prior to. A lot of people can just go down there for their programs and prepare somewhat, but with Zoe and the Cosmic Sisterhood, we were tasked to go a little deeper prior to, and I think that was valuable. I mean, it wasn't like a full-time job reflecting and going. The hardest part, and is the hardest part for most people, is the diet. But you want to cleanse your body, and it's really about reducing sugar, dairy, alcohol, and meat, and hot spices. So anything that's taxes the liver or is a challenge for your body to process and is a little bit too stimulating is what you want to back off of, so you can get your body to a place like you were as a child almost, where you're just clean. It's not like you're cleansing, but you are backing off all of that, and then it heightens your awareness essentially. Um, so that when you go, you still at the temple are required to purge prior to ceremony.
What do you mean?
Well, they have you drink a lot of water and different liquids that clear your system. So before any ceremony starts, you're clean. We would take a series of herbal drinks after purging that would restore electrolytes and energy.
Everything you just lost.
Yeah, in a beautiful way. And we actually helped make the drinks that we took, and then we each met with the Shipibo shamans who were running the ceremonies, which I have to say are some of the most elegant and people with the integrity one would never expect to feel from people you've never met or known. It's just the way they carried themselves, the way they honored who you were, the way they sang in the ceremonies. It was a growing and dawning experience to appreciate who they truly were, and to all of us, pretty amazing, impressive people, and beautiful to look at. Anyway, so if you imagine yourself in this sort of clean, clear space, and you meet with them, and they ask you what are your issues, physical or otherwise, before ceremonies even begin. They really want to know.
The shamans do.
Yeah, the
Okay.
shamans, they don't speak English, so the staff at the temple translated. And you would just go alone and meet with 7 shamans, and they would all, sit there and stare at you. Hey. And, for me at the time, I just had this chronic right shoulder thing that's been bothering me since I had a ski accident years ago. And you wanted to share, they want to know if you've ever had any surgeries, all about your body needs. And then they prescribe a therapy during the week that you're there. So I had to meet with a shaman who massaged me every morning, which was fabulous.
Wow.
And then I was prescribed certain drinks to take every morning. So, when you look at the whole picture of what this was, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, it's really involved.
We had to take baths with herbs, where we would meet every day, and these huge tubs were filled with marigolds and mint and beautiful aromatic herbs, and we would go and sit on this little bench, and the shamans would take a bucket and pour this blessed water of herbs over your head. And that was something that was done every day to clear before you.
Wow.
That was in the evening, so we had the medicine and the massage or whatever they prescribed in the morning, and then we had time to reflect, or we took hikes in the jungle and learned about jungle plants, met the ayahuasca vine. And then sometimes we'd have lectures in the food hall. And then prior to the ceremony, there were 4 ceremonies this week. We were there. And before each ceremony, even though we were there like 7 days, they don't do them every night. So you have 2 ceremonies and then a break where we would all come together and reflect what happened, and how we think we might integrate some of that. And then we do another ceremony and take a break, and then a final. And so the ceremonies wouldn't happen till the evening. And so we had the afternoons to write in our journals, take naps, you know, witness our body's reaction. Some of us had different reactions to food and whatever. We each had our own little tambo, which was a little room or maybe that's the name of the toilet. I forget. Um, and they had
Easy to
the
confuse the
yes,
two.
they
Yeah.
had these. We each had a little, composting toilet in our little tambo, and it was just,
Is really
uh,
set up for
oh
this
my
whole
goodness.
experience. The whole
Yes,
thing you've described, it sounds like there's the ayahuasca ceremony, but everything sounded like a ceremony.
that's a beautiful way to put it because it was like that. And then experiencing it with this blessed group of people who were selected through this grant process to go, and that we would all share that downloading together. We became, very close for that time we were there, and very supportive of each other too.
Yeah,
So
it's such an intimate process to go through that with, and you've been preparing for months.
yes,
And then you
yes,
get there and you're still preparing. And I'm imagining that all these processes you're going through are like are so appealing to your unconscious self because it's letting you know something important is happening, you know?
yes,
Like every drink you're taking, every special tea, every bath, every massage is preparing your psyche for something important.
that's right. And you're also so aware that how grateful you are to have this time out of mind, out of country, in this incredible environment that's that you're doing just for you. I mean, how often do we give ourselves even a gift like that? Because we're all women, essentially, especially, are caretakers of others, and it it took me a while to stop feeling selfish and realize this is okay. This is on purpose. This is what I want.
You mean when you were down there?
Yeah. Well, no, just leading, knowing it was
The whole
happening,
thing.
the whole
Okay,
thing,
gotcha.
and then feeling so blessed and blissed about all that was actually given to us when we were there that we didn't expect. So it was very heartfelt that way, and important to have that lead in. And I have to say, it wasn't like I wasn't nervous. I was pretty nervous. I hadn't, done any psychedelics since the 60s, and I hear it was the 2018. So that was daunting. It's important for people, if you've had any psychedelic experience, it's more of a bridge to understanding what it could be. So in a way that's helpful, right? Because you can remember a little bit.
I mean your previous
Yeah,
psychedelic
yeah. Anybody
experiences?
who's had previous psychedelic experience, no matter how far back, that was a shifting experience, even though it was unguided,
Mm-hmm.
right? Anyone who did that in the 60s, all of us in our generation, shifted our lifestyles.
Yeah.
Chris Killam will talk about that and say how it opened him up to yoga and organic food, and you know, because you become so present and aware of everything around you, you start to question everything, and then you shift. So having had that experience and then knowing, okay, this could be similar, you know, a little unsettling.
Yeah.
And then
What's
you have signed that piece of paper that you're not backing out. So
no pressure.
no pressure.
So was there anything in particular that you were apprehensive about when you thought about the experience before you had it?
Totally. And it's all about, giving over your entire self to an experience. There's no control.
Okay, so the
The
control
lack of
piece.
control
Yeah.
is the scariest part for, I think, anyone who feels more controlling in their lives, I guess.
But I think you could probably if you do that control could probably limit your experience too, I imagine.
Oh, so true. I have to say, it was interesting to witness some people who were unable for 3 ceremonies to feel anything, because I think
The guard was up.
the guard was up, so they couldn't.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating to see how that works. And I think it's very important for anybody looking into going to the Temple of the Way of Light, or to another temple to experience ayahuasca, that they check in with themselves, because it's an investment, and you really do have to be able to let go, to let it happen, right? there were 4 ceremonies, and I think you have to have more than one ceremony if you're really going to go through this therapy, which it is, and open up to this master plan and what it can do for you.
Does each ceremony kind of build on the previous
Yes,
one?
and the more ayahuasca you take in, the more it builds in your system.
Oh, so you it kind
It
of stays in
it
your
it stays
system.
in your
Okay.
system and it builds. And so I've talked to people who've done the ayahuasca 30, 40, 50 times.
Wow.
And, that's something they really have resonated with for themselves to, because each time you go in, it works with a different layer, and then that either builds on that or goes to another. And some of us have had a lot of trauma in our
Right.
lives, and it may take a lot of ceremonies for that person. Or if you're not able to let go, you have to keep going back because you want it. Um, but I definitely would recommend an opportunity to do 2 or 3 at least in a row, if you have the space and facility and time to invest, because then you get a package deal that you don't have to keep going back here and there for another ceremony somewhere. Anyway, I to share my experience a little bit, the first night was really funny. I you go into the space where everybody has a mattress and a bowl for purging if necessary, and then you're given a bottle that the shamans pray into. It's called Florida water, but it's like a cologne type liquid that's sold down there that they use. And we all come in, and I don't know who determines exactly where you're placed, but you're given a spot, and then it takes the shamans come in, and there's quiet. We've been in the can't remember the name of the ceremonial space, but it's a huge round building with screens and a thatched roof that's so beautiful, and wooden floors. And I think we were maybe 30, each with our own space on the perimeter, and then the shamans are in the middle, and they come in, and we've been in there for half an hour doing yoga and breathing exercises, which was really fabulous because you cannot breathe when you're in the ceremony, because so much is happening. You might forget really helps you remember to breathe through the ceremony.
Because of anxiety or
Yeah,
anxious? Yeah.
and wherever it's taking you, as you're going into it, the big thing is to remember to breathe.
I think, yeah, that's pretty important.
Very important. So then the shamans, when they come in, they sit for a while and they prepare the space where we each go up and drink, and you're able to say how much you want.
Of the ayahuasca
The
tea.
ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So many of us started small, and then we could ask for more way into the ceremony if we felt we needed to.
Huh, that's interesting. I would have thought they would have prescribed the amount that each
It's,
person needed.
because we're all such bio individuals and we act so differently with everything, and you think of allergies and how everybody has different um, responses to food.
Yeah, I was just thinking that someone might want to go, head first and take like the largest dose possible.
Well, there
Let's.
was a limit to the dose you
Oh,
could
okay.
get. It was like a
I'll
shot.
take a six pack. Yeah.
It was like a shot glass, and then anyway, the staff person would be there, and you'd come up and you'd kneel and you bow in front of the shaman, and the staff person from the temple would look at you and ground you a little bit and you would get these mapacho cigarettes, which are also something you're welcome to smoke while you're there. And I mean, I was a smoker, quit 22 years ago, and I was worried about, is that going to make me want a cigarette again? And it didn't. It's actually a medicine to help ground you, especially if you're like, oh my God, I need this. I'm going off too
And
far.
nicotine's more of a stimulant, I think, right?
Well, if you know a lot of the Tibetan monks, and monks who are praying, a lot of them are smokers.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the Tibetan monks, but it's monks in India. A lot of they are on these macrobiotic diets. Is that
It
what?
includes Marlboros or
Anyway, I've been told and I've known that since that it's a very grounding.
huh.
And this particular tobacco is grown there, and it's not, there's no chemicals or anything in it. It's not like a cigarette. It's just a rolled straight tobacco called mapacho in Peru. And anyway, so you're given that, and then you go back to your mat and you lie down or you sit up and wait for the experience to take hold. And meanwhile, what was so beautiful and blessed was each of these shamans, there were 7 shamans, 7 Shipibo people, only 5 were doing the ceremony in any given night. And their talent for singing the Icaros, they're called Icaros, this music, it's a song that's their own personal song that they've crafted and learned since they decided to become a shaman in their village. And they came to the Temple of the Way of Light on a boat 4 day that took 4 days to get there on the
Wow.
Amazon. These are very secluded people, and they train very seriously for what they do. And so there was a younger shaman, and what happens is you begin to love their music so much that, and you get attached to a certain shaman's voice and over the period. And so they go around to each person. 5 people come and sit in front of you and sing to you alone.
So all 30 people throughout the
Yes.
course of the
Well, I
evening.
think there
Yeah.
was at 30 could fit in there, but there was like 23 of us. And so through the course of the evening, it's like a 4-hour ceremony.
Wow.
You're getting one person in front of you singing to you. And their song is a healing song. And it's just unbelievable. You try to sit up when each one comes to honor their song, but as the medicine takes you, some of us just couldn't get up, and they still sing. They sing to your head because you're facing out, so your head is towards them, and it gets hard to sit up.
Did you notice that the song would facilitate a certain process, like when they would begin singing
Yes,
over you?
yes. So, you have your intention before you're going to, of what you want to try to fix, whether it's a trauma from early life or understanding a certain way you behave that you want to shift, whatever. For me, I was really interested in understanding intimacy and what that means in relationship. And for lots of reasons I won't go into, but the mother, the La Medicina, they're going to go in and do what needs to be done, regardless of whatever intention you think you have. That's what's so astounding about this medicine and why I revere what it can do for
Are you talking
people.
about the spirit of the plant?
Yeah, the
Okay.
plant medicine that when it comes into your body, it's almost as if it knows where to go and what to fix. And granted, it may not fix everything in the few ceremonies you have, but the integration process afterwards and the reflection you go through, it keeps going deeper in what you've been able to take away from it. And it's so different for each individual. There's no, although some people in some ceremonies have seen the same things, like the anaconda is a big metaphor for ayahuasca, like the snake for me, the symbol of a spiral is really universal on so many levels for for this planet and who we are and how we live. So I'm laying there and I'm sitting up each time the different Akiro song and shaman comes through to me. But, by the fourth ceremony, it was harder and harder to sit up. The first ceremony, they have these beautiful men who come and get you. You have to shine a red light that doesn't blind anybody. They come and get you and you have to go to the bathroom. And so the first night, oh my gosh, I have to go. I don't want to throw up in here. I'll go throw up in the bathroom, right? The Tambo, I think it's called. Anyway, so they take you out, and so you get in the bathroom, and that's when it came on, when I was in the bathroom.
Ah,
And I started laughing. The first night, it was just pure joy. And I didn't know everybody up in the ceremony room could hear me. So it was really
that's awesome.
embarrassing. They're telling me, Marie, what's going on down there?
This is
So
the best bathroom ever.
I know. It's been known as the vortex. Some people get into the bathroom and they can't get out again. But
That sounds fun.
I kept going out and then having a fit of laughter and having to go back in to collect myself. It took me a long time to get back up there. So that was just the first night, and then the other ceremonies for me would go deeper and deeper. And I don't know if it's beneficial to share one's personal experience, except to say, that it does create such an astonishing reflection afterwards about what it erupted in you. And so many people get these visions. I had this vision of all these people around me trying to get into my aura, and I would ask my angels to come in and keep them away. And they were like taking pictures of me and dangling these little trinkets for me to buy, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna, I can't let you in. I can't let you in. So I mean, you have these isolated, odd, dream-like experiences like that, and then you'll have these epiphanies. And I was my back to my Catholic childhood, and growing up with two beautiful parents who became serious alcoholics. So it was just sort of a downward trend in our big family life. My mother used to say she would write a book called From Sacks to Sears without any tears. But they had it really rough. Both my parents did. And there was a lot of anger amongst my siblings about the neglect that we experienced. And that wasn't part of my intention at all to deal with when I was there.
But lo and behold,
But lo and behold, they came right in. And I just knew in that moment I had to forgive them. And then when I did, they just turned into these bright light archangel like luminous people, as almost as if I released them from some burden by forgiving them.
super powerful.
It was so powerful. And then when we reflected afterwards, and I recognized, some people had boyfriends, in the past, or people who had died who came back, and there was a closure of so much for so many people that were with us, that it was truly astonishing. And so that was a huge epiphany for me, to realize that had to be released. And it was very deep in my gut. And I didn't even realize
Hmm.
how much, you know, I don't want to say anger, but, holding in of all the false promises, and this is never, lack of trust, all of those things from childhood, which many of us carry, because it's childhood that you really are you're
Absolutely.
so vulnerable, and you hold on, and it gets to the
Well,
cellular level.
it's all
So
you know when you're coming up.
right, so that cellular level of retaining emotional issues is what I think they release.
And it sounds like what you perceived does tie in with your ultimate intention.
That's the integration process.
Okay.
So even though at the time you're not making connections,
Uh-huh.
when
Later on.
later on, and they have this beautiful worksheet the temple puts out, and Zoe has us all write a huge, reflection that we turn in as part of the grant process. But it takes about 6 months to totally integrate all those ceremonies and what each one brought to you. And you're journaling the next day in your room what you think you happened, what you think you felt.
And
And
you're
that,
still probably under the influence of the ceremony, so you're probably able to access that information in a really deep way,
yes,
as opposed to trying to remember it when you get back home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You almost have to do that. It's so you can clear yourself for the next ceremony, essentially, too. And then you try to connect all the dots over,
Purging with ink.
yeah, purging with ink. And you connect all the dots when you come back and reflect when you can. And yes, I agree. And so that was the second night, and it was pretty huge for me. And there were so many other smaller kind of vignettes of epiphanies that happened, and anyone would relate to that if they, would. And most of us had some of those things. And in terms of applying it to my life, I had done a shamanic trip with Rocio Elkaran in Ecuador a year before. So what you take away from what you learn and I think of it as like an infusion. You have this intention, and then you infuse yourself with that intention, whether it's through your work here with the life vessel or ayahuasca or other means. It's not like ayahuasca's for everybody, because there's now different modalities available to open up people's ability to reflect and get these epiphanies, because they're clearing that cellular memory and allowing the light to come in to give them the epiphany.
You're saying because they're setting this intention.
They're setting the intention. That's the key. It's like with my health coaching. I want people to be intentional about feeling better. I can't make them feel that way. They have to come with that intention.
And I don't know if you'd want that power to be able to
Oh
make
no,
somebody feel
nobody
that way.
would.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think of the missionaries in the Catholic. Anyway, so I don't
You
like
want to
being
talk
I don't
about
like
that?
being told what to do.
Really?
Um,
I haven't met many people who do.
That's true,
Really. Yeah.
really. So, yes, having the intention first, and then infusing yourself in the experience, and then understanding the transformation that's truly taken place, and honoring that, and grounding it. And then what do you do? How are you going to apply that to your life? How does that manifest in who you are? And has it catapulted you into shorter lifetimes, and I'm still working a lot of that out.
So how long have you been back now since you've had those
Well,
ceremonies?
it was back in March of 18,
Okay, so we're coming up on a year.
coming up on a year,
Okay.
and it's still pretty fresh. And I guess for me, in terms of applying things to my life, I feel like love and kindness are huge. They need to be bigger than they've ever been, understood deeper than they ever have. And
Are you saying for yourself?
for myself,
Definitely for the world.
for the world. I mean, what I learned in ayahuasca is that not everybody is who they seem. There's this,
That's ominous sounding,
it is.
the way you worded it.
No.
I think I know what you mean, though. Go ahead and
It's
explain.
like I like came away feeling like we were in this masquerade ball, in this reality plane that we're in right now in
I love that.
2019. And those movies with the big masquerade balls, and they all have these
Yeah, the
fancy
eye
eye
masks with the
masks, or
feathers and
all, yeah, and you just don't have any idea who's behind that costume. I feel like that's the reality we're in.
yeah, that
I
sounds like life on planet Earth.
I
Yeah.
think I think it's so important not to make assumptions automatically. For me, it's like, why do we have a Trump right now? What's important about his reign and his reign of terror? Um, is it to wake us up? So that the millennials will just say, "We need to run for office. We need," or what is it?
I think it's going to be one of those hindsight experiences where,
Yeah.
like, we won't be able to make much sense of it until maybe whatever has to happen is going to happen, and then we can look back and say, "Oh, that's what I'm hoping, at least."
Well, I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's helping us define more who we really want to be as a country. When you have these contrasts, these huge
Yeah,
contrasts,
that's what
you are asked to define more of what it is you want to be, and to make America.
and there currently doesn't seem to be agreement on that.
No, we're just in the throes of the process, and you know that's what it is. But I think because of my experience in journeys, I've just been much more reflective without jumping to conclusions, and I think I'm listening to people better.
So are you saying, for example, with the political climate now, that you have a little emotional distance from it, where you're able to just sort of
Yeah, well,
observe it and
I have a sister who's left the family 10 years ago and hasn't spoken to any of us. And we all went through a lot of trauma around that. But now recognize she needed to do that to survive and honor her decision. And I keep saying, everybody's on their own journey.
yeah, that's a very different reframe, isn't it, than I
Mm-hmm.
imagine you had before,
Yeah.
where it probably felt a lot more personal.
Yeah, I don't take things as personally anymore.
That's huge.
It's really important for my survival not to.
I think I think there's probably maybe one or two other people who might agree. I'm one of them.
And it's so interesting when you do take something personal, you need to ask yourself why
Yeah.
and what you can learn from that.
Well, I think it's so automatic for most of
Hmm.
us that we don't even realize that we're taking things personally.
Hmm.
Go back to our childhood, that's
Well,
where it usually
exactly.
starts.
How are we mirroring our, if we're not getting the mirroring we should have had with our mothers in terms of, oh, I'm okay because you're smiling at me, or what.
Yeah,
Um, if we could all clear our cellular memories of trauma and self-loathing of some kind, or whatever it is that's stuck in our cells that makes us feel the way we do, that's not healthy or serving us anymore, if we could just do that. And I think ayahuasca is one way to explore that opportunity. um, One of the shamans who I love, the younger one, I don't know how many ceremonies he had done up until that point, but he had this beautiful voice. And he was the one to get me to completely release everything. I
wow.
didn't even think it could go deeper, and it went deeper and deeper. I was like, wow. And in his song, I looked down at my legs, and all I could see was blue light, and all I could see, all my veins, I could see, and everything was like clearing, and it was just phenomenal. The visuals
That's
that you
amazing.
get,
Yeah.
and I knew it was his song that was doing it, which is it's like you don't think of sound as a healer, but
Some of us
sound.
maybe not, but that's what I'm in the business of doing
Right,
here.
that's right, that's
So
right. But I mean, it
maybe a
was
little bit.
that was what was healing so many of us, was those
Yeah,
songs.
no,
That was pretty profound.
it's really powerful. Wow. So do you think this is an experience you will repeat?
I don't think I would go back for a number of years. I'm a slow
Processor or
processor. Uh, I like looking under every rock and cranny that could possibly get out of that experience. I'd like to, maybe in a couple of years, and maybe in Ecuador at this other center that I would love to support. But the Temple of the Way of Light and the Shipibo shamans, I can't recommend anything more highly. And I've talked to other people that have been there, would say the same. And of course, I don't have an experience to compare it with any other temple in Peru, but yeah, I just
no, that's high praise
so
though.
blessed to have that opportunity.
No, it sounds like it was the whole experience was really well managed and it created a safe environment for you to have this super intimate spiritual experience.
Yes. And they offer, you can go for a week and do 5 ceremonies. We only did 4 because there was a lot of problems with people traveling. Or you can do, I think they have a 7 ceremony option for 12 days, and then they have you can go for a month and do just a few ceremonies and have a way more time to integrate. So they have just a lot of different ways to go about it. If you want to go on your own to the Temple of the Way of Light, I know other people who have, and that they had enough time to prepare. With the Cosmic Sisterhood, it was definitely felt safer because of, you know, the people that were vetted to be there. I think it would be hard to go with just complete strangers and not having anyone say, wow, they can handle this, you know?
I could see that, yeah. Does the temple and the Cosmic Sisterhood, do they have websites?
They do. And if you Google,
Well,
uh,
I'll put them in the show notes.
okay,
I'll look.
can you put a photo? Can
I
you?
can put photos in
I
there,
could
yeah.
just send you a few photos of the space and the shamans.
Yeah, that would be great to
Yeah,
give people
they can get
a
a sense of
taste
the
of what
feel and
the
color
experience
and
is like, yeah, or the place is like.
and
Yeah.
and the thing with the temple, you know, Ecuador, I mean, rather sorry, Peru and Ecuador, as a matter of fact, you know, so much of their environmental resources along the Amazon are being threatened. And what's beautiful about the temple, because ayahuasca is becoming such a tourist attraction to the South America, um, they're taking a lot of their profit and putting it back into the country to support sustainable ways
Oh, that's
of
wonderful.
protecting the
Yeah.
jungle. And it's really you're getting that too when you're contributing to what they're doing.
So, has your experience impacted how you approach your work?
Yes, like I mentioned, I think I'm a better listener, even though we all know you must be as a coach. I think I can listen deeper, and I've also noticed that my, you know, so-called anxiety levels of that I've lived with most of my life, which I always thought was my normal, and I found out that it's
Surprise.
um, has reduced dramatically, and that's felt really good. And I think it's just that I'm more in touch with my whole being.
Wonderful. What about your relationship with the plant spirits that you work with when
Oh,
you're
that's a
working with plant medicines?
beautiful question. Thank you for that. It definitely opens your eyes to the power of maybe just the intellect of plants and understanding that they are there for us in a way you would never expect. And it's actually helped me personally want to cut back on a million herbs
Oh, really?
and really focus and honor a certain group of herbs that grow in my region, bioregion, that are here for us in central Vermont and helping people in my workshops and apprenticeships and whatever I do really focus on medicine that's in their backyard and understanding the value of that soil that they're a part of and how that reciprocal relationship can evolve.
Makes perfect sense. So, how can folks find you?
Oh, well, I have two websites. I'm at taprootherbals.com and I'm at Marie Frohlich, that's Frohlich.com.
And I'll put both of those links in the show notes as well.
Okay, thanks, Wendy.
Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming on. And this has been a really powerful, amazing conversation. I feel like I've learned a whole bunch about the ayahuasca experience.
Well, I so appreciate you approaching me to talk about this. It's the first time I've had a chance to do that. And I hope that people listening will explore further ways that a psychedelic might help them or even look into what you have to offer and really looking forward to
Well, thanks for that plug very much.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a podcast with you about your work.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that. Marie has graciously offered to interview me on my own podcast. So that'll be we're going to flip it.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, we're going to talk about shamanism. So looking forward to doing that.
Me too.
Yeah, but thank you for doing this one.
Yes, I'm so happy we had this chance.
Yeah, me too. So do you feel like you just spent the last hour in the jungles of Peru? I want to thank Marie for sharing her experience with us, and I want to thank you for listening. Until next time.